Wrestling with wrestling's past and present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Do you see any of the aggro crag? Was any of that left over?
No, unfortunately not.
No?
I'm taking some of that home.
Definitely not is the barn burner that Leaf Cassidy and Tiger thing was, but we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends soon.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
Is it still real to me? Damn it!
He kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put the Selena Vega on a pole match.
And Big E's got Whale performing in his entrance, so I feel like
Wale.
Wale. I don't listen to. Okay, well, I don't listen to him, so I apologize to Wale.
This is in the mail, my good sir. No, it wasn't.
I feel like Vince is just gonna have them team together and be like, have them called Woo Bro. Like they're just gonna be the Woo Bros. Like, anyway.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely,
and then you can listen to us too.
Strap on and balls only on wrestling past and present.
This is Gangrel, the Vampire Warrior, and you're listening to Wrestling where wrestling's past and present.
This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kirk.
Oh, I was waiting for Roland. I'm Mongo.
Before we get going, best wishes to Roland today. Roland a little bit under the weather, so just like you guys covered for me last week, we got him covered this week. So best wishes, Roland. Hope you feel better soon, and hope you enjoy this episode.
Absolute, buddy. I was going to keep with the joke that you better mute the whole episode, but I can't be that. Hope you feel better.
So today it is episode, I think it's 117. Is that right?
Sounds right to me. I know. I'm starting to lose count.
I know. It is SuperBrawl II. Took place in February 29th, 1992 from WCW. I've had a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of early WCW shows, and they've always been really good. And not to spoil anything, but this one was a pretty impressive show, in my opinion.
I really enjoyed this one. I was a little, in the text, I was a little meh to you guys, because I'm not really the biggest fan of the Air, but I realized, I don't think it's that I'm not a fan of the Air. I'm just not a fan of WEF. Because, like you said, this was a really good show. I found myself enjoying it. I mean, Emily even watched some of it with me, and she was enjoying some of the older matches. So, I definitely agree. It's fun to go back, hop in the time machine and go back to 1992 and, see kind of what wrestling was like then and even what the presentation of the show was like.
Yeah, it definitely had a more high class feel to it. I mean, the announcers were in tuxedos and stuff like that. And I believe, I'm just checking my notes here, I believe this was the first pay-per-view that did not include the NWA banner. I think this was the first pay-per-view that was a solely WCW show. I'm just checking my notes to make sure. Normally we would prepare this ahead of time, but we're not that professional.
I think there was funny too is while you're looking for that, I noticed at the end of the show they actually had credits like a movie did.
Well, WCW did that. A lot of their shows they had credits, and it's kind of cool because if you listen to Eric Bischoff's podcast, he mentions a lot of those names that are on the credits, so it's kind of cool. Oh, I remember hearing Bischoff talk about that name. I'm still trying to find
but I just thought it was cool because
tidbit,
it said the show was produced by Virgil. I'm not Virgil, but excuse me, Dusty,
Virgil Runnels, yeah,
Virgil Runnels. So yeah. I was trying to think of his whole name. I don't want to say just Virgil because that's obviously a different person.
Yes, we don't want that Virgil.
No. But I was like, okay, and then you saw there was a Crockett involved, and just the names involved, and I think that's what made this show is. The wrestling minds involved in the ring and outside the ring on this were incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesse Ventura was one of the announcers with Jim Ross, and that's actually a pretty low-key good commentary team. I thought they had really good chemistry. I mean, they obviously didn't work very long together, but I was really enjoying the commentary in this one.
How can you not love Justin's body? It's like when he's pointing out something so obvious, he's like, shut your mouth, JR.
Well, what I liked about him is he's, the heel announcer, but he actually is not afraid to criticize the heels too. I don't know how many times in the show they mentioned, oh, he should have hooked the leg. That was every match.
Yep.
But no, it was definitely a good commentary team. So, but let's get right into the matches here. The dark match was Big Josh getting a win over DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. Big Josh was Matt Bourne. He was one of the Doink the Clowns, stuff like that. Pretty decent length for a dark match, 7.5 minutes here. I think this would be a good one to get the crowd going. I mean, two really good workers. I know DDP pretty green here. I mean, he's just coming off driving the Cadillac for the Honky Tonk Man at WrestleMania. Yep. But I thought this was a pretty good dark match to see.
I wish we could have seen it. That would have been really cool. Yeah, because just like you said, it was 7 minutes. So it's like, wow, that was definitely a good way to start the match. And, I know people crap on the Doink the Clown gimmicks, but the original Doink with Matt Bourne, where he was like the psycho clown, like the crazy clown, it was pretty cool. And then he was, like you said, a good worker. So I bet it was a fun match because I know DDP, like you said, was just coming in and just really learning the ropes. But we had some other people on here learning the ropes, and I bet he looks better than them.
Yes, I would agree with that. But we start off the actual pay-per-view with a singles match for the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship. You have Flying Brian Pillman getting a win over Juice and Liger in 17 minutes exactly. What a way to start off the pay-per-view. This was an incredible match. I mean, this was such good chemistry between these guys. I haven't watched a whole lot of Liger's matches. I obviously know the name. He's very popular in the Hall of Fame now from Japan. But, WCW had a knack for trying to get the international stars over to WCW. You think of the Great Muta, a lot of guys from Japan, Vader, stuff like that. So, this was no exception to that rule. But they put on a hell of a performance, and what a way to start off the show. This easily could have been. This was a main event style match that went on first. I mean, I was really impressed with this one.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite matches without jumping too far ahead. Probably one of my favorite matches because I didn't see a lot. Same with you. I didn't really see a lot of Jushin besides his sporadic WCW appearances, TNA once in a while. Because I didn't really watch All Japan or New Japan back in the day, but he was so impressive. And Emily made a comment to me last night because this is one of the matches she watched. Wow, he's been wrestling a really long time, and he did. He wrestled probably 30 plus years, if I had to take a guess. And to wrestle that style that long is super impressive too. Because like you said, there were some spots in there like he'd go up to the top rope and do a crossbody, and then Brian would go up and do a crossbody. And they're doing this to the outside in the 90s. That's unheard of. Like you didn't see people doing planchas and tope suicidas like you do every day now. These were like gym mats from high school that were like a 1/4 inch of foam on cement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just what a great way to start the show. Next up, it's kind of hard to live up to that hype of that great match. Buff Bagwell or Marcus Alexander Bagwell at this time getting a win over the tailor-made man, Terrence Taylor. He's also known as the Red Rooster. If Roland was here, he would do his Red Rooster impression. But you can listen to the intro to hear that. I think it's still in the intro. I don't know. This was okay. It was better than I thought it was going to be. Obviously, it's not going to be the best match on the card by any means. But for what it was, I thought it was all right. I'm not a huge Buff Bagwell fan. I'm not a huge Terry Taylor fan. But I think they put on a decent match. They had a little bit of a storyline here, which made it work. Where Bagwell didn't want to become Taylor's protege, and so Taylor's going to show him, make him regret that decision. So they had a little bit of a backstory going on here, which made the match a little bit more believable. So it was better than I thought it would be. It's the best way I can describe this one.
Yeah, when I first saw the card, I'm like, oh, Buff Bagwell versus the Red Rooster, that should be a banger.
Yeah,
like, yay. It wasn't terrible. This was before he was buff, when he came in, he was that weird, I don't know what I am gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And then Terry Taylor with the stolen $1 million man suit from Etsy.
Yep.
I think it was like 3 sizes too big for him. Like, you're supposed to be tailor-made. It doesn't fit you, pal.
Right?
But, yeah, it was weird. At one point, I remember Taylor, he climbed to the top rope to try splash thing, and it looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then Buff Bagwell hit him with that flipping powerbomb, sunset flips, I guess you would call it. So it was interesting because I didn't expect that out of him. And then I also, kept getting a pop because they kept calling about his mommy on the commentary.
Yeah, I know. Rest in peace. Judy just passed away not that long ago. So
I know. As much as we can, but it's not the person. It's just I feel bad for the storyline she was put in.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Judy Bagwell on a pole. You can't. Can't get over that. Next up is Ron Simmons getting a win over Cactus Jack. I would have liked to see this match go a lot longer than it did. It only went 6.5 minutes. I thought this would have been potentially a really good match. Maybe a little bit of a clash of styles here, but I don't know. You have 2 Hall of Fame performers in this match. Ron Simmons, obviously fairly green in the business at this point. Cactus Jack on almost a little bit green as well. But you have 2 future Hall of Famers here that know what they're doing in the ring. I would have liked to see this one go longer than it did. A little surprised actually that Ron Simmons got the win on this one.
I think Abdullah's entrance when he came in to interfere lasted longer than the match.
Yeah, and JYD coming into.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a terrible match, like you said. Just it felt like it was too short, and they just didn't really have the chemistry with each other yet. But they both could work, and I was actually kind of surprised to see, what movesets Ron Simmons used to do, because you see him more as like the brawler type versus technical wrestling, and even the ending when Mick Foley Cactus Jack goes to jump off the top rope and he catches him at the power slam, like it's so fluid, like it looks really good. That was a good clean finish.
Yeah. And
then you have Abdullah the Butcher taking 17 years to walk down to the ring.
Yep.
Junkyard strolling out of the crowd in that white tuxedo.
Yep.
Yeah. It was just kind of comical. It was like, I'm like, geez, man, this is the slowest interference I've ever seen.
That's a good point. You mentioned the power slam finish. I've made this note before. Like back in this era, the finishes were so much simpler than they are now. You would never see somebody win with a power slam now. We'll get into our main event. The main event was one with the crossbody. You would never see a world title change on a crossbody. But I kind of like it because it puts a little bit more emphasis on the actual wrestling part of it, and like you can win with basically at any point. So, but the finishes were so much simpler back in the early 90s.
Yeah, it's because not everyone needed that. Like, okay, it's kind of like Billy Gunn said recently about his criticism of AEW, which I've always agreed with too, and I kind of with every form of wrestling, is you don't have to hit every single move in your arsenal in every single match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what's watered down, like the DDT, the power slam, anything off the top rope, even a Hurricane Rana used to be devastating and things like that. But it's because everyone likes that move, so they want to hit it in their move. But it cheapens the moves. It cheapens when your arsenal is full of like what used to be finishers for everyone. It kind of cheapens those. So like you said,
yeah.
When Ultimate Warrior would do his gorilla press, it was over. When Hogan would do the leg drop, it was over. Like you said, a power slam like this, a cross body, you didn't know it was over because it was a big move that came out of nowhere. So I think that's what wrestling's kind of lacking is moves make sense in the match, but it doesn't have to be all your highlight reels.
Yeah. I think of Harley Race, who's regarded as one of the best ever. I believe his finisher was just a suplex.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to have these high impact moves to win a match. You can win with simple moves, and I think it actually makes more sense and it makes it more realistic.
Right. No, I will say I love when they hit the cool moves. Don't get me wrong, but it's like we always joke about too, like tope suicida, dive to the. It's just after a while it just becomes routine, or even sometimes in WWE and WCW, you'd have that wrestler who always had to hit his big boot every single match, or always had to hit the elbow drop, but it wasn't the finish. It's like, but the elbow drop should be a finish. I'm sorry if Macho Man's coming down and that elbow's coming to my chest, I'm done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Next up is a tag team match. Okay, we got to talk about this one a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Van Hammer and Z-Man getting a win over Ricky Morton and Vinny Vegas, who's obviously Kevin Nash, in 12 minutes. This was the Let Me Up match, if there's ever been a Let Me Up match on the show. This is the one I was found being on my phone, not paying attention. I just wasn't invested in this. I don't know, I don't care about Van Hammer. I'm sorry. Like, no offense to him. He's done more in the wrestling business than I ever will, but still, I just don't care about Van Hammer. I would have liked to see him. First of all, the match went way too long for me.
Right.
This should not have been 12 minutes. I would have liked to see the last match go 12 minutes and this one go 6 minutes. Like, reverse the times. Excuse me. I didn't care about this one. I just had nothing in it that kept me interested. And it's a shame because you have Hall of Famers and Vinny Vegas and Richard Morton, but I don't know. I would skip over this one.
I joked last week when we were talking about this. I was like, "Oh, Richard Morton and Vinny Vegas. That's an odd pairing." Because I was just like, "Okay, so we have Kevin Nash and Ricky Morton teaming up for a reason, I guess." So that's the other reason. Is like, why was this match thing? I think it was supposed to be a singles match at one point, from when I did my research, and it was last minute thrown together tag match. So obviously they didn't trust Van Hammer or Z-Man, and Vinny Vegas was Kevin Nash, for those who don't know. Had his terrible run in WCW where he came in as like a master blaster.
Yeah, he was Oz.
And he was like that weird Wizard of Oz gimmick.
Yep.
And then he basically was like, I'm not re-signing with you guys. So they basically made him Vinny Vegas, which is actually a character from the movie My Blue Heaven, which is a solid movie if you haven't seen it. This one I'll understand, Tim, because it's a very obscure movie. But Rick Moranis and Steve Martin. Steve Martin plays this guy named Vincent who's in the Mafia, goes into witness protection. And Rick Moranis is like the guy who's trying to help him. And it's one of those typical 90s comedy shenanigans movies, but Vinny Vegas is literally a character from that. And I looked it up because I always thought that. I'm like, yeah, I was right. So that was more entertaining to me, was doing a deep dive in remembering My Blue Heaven versus watching
this match. Yeah.
12 minutes. It should have been like 2 minutes, like you said. Yeah. Give that 10 minutes to someone else.
Way too long. But the show really picks up from here on out, I think. Next, you have another tag team match. So there's a string of tag team matches going on in a row here. You have Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes getting a win over Stunning Steve Austin and the Crusher, Larry Zbyszko?
Larry Zbyszko.
They were probably, yeah. About 18 and a half minutes here. I mean, so much talent in this match. I mean, it's so cool. It's so weird to me, actually, I should say. The Stunning Steve Austin gimmick, because we all grew up with the Stone Cold flipping people off, stunning his boss kind of gimmick. The guy that's against authority. To see him come out with blonde hair and a robe, it's just totally different from his character that he's well known for. So little odd, but I mean, so much talent in this match, and like that's one thing that I took note of watching this card is WCW was stacked with talent in this era. I mean, they had a lot of talent, but this was another great match. I mean, this was a solid tag team match, and definitely one worth to watch.
I know, I agree. This was kind of like you said, WCW, had a lot of talent on the books, and they were just starting to kind of find their groove. You'd be a few years before you had the defections that would really put them over the top. But this shows that some of the things they swung and missed on you, like you said, they had Stunning Steve Austin. Comes out in these weird ass black trunks with like confetti or whatever. Yeah. And like he wrestled a completely different style than I'm used to too. So that was different. But it's kind of just funny that essentially it was Goldust and Stone Cold, fighting Windham and Larry Zbyszko. Like it was an odd pairing too, but I enjoyed it. I just think it's because I like Barry Windham, and I think this was nice to see vintage Dustin Rhodes. Like the natural, like kind of what he went back to when he went to AEW. Not the Goldust, not the comedy, like his pure wrestling ability.
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes famously has a line when he left WWE in 2016, 2017, where he said, you put my father in polka dots and you ruined my brother with paint. And he's not wrong. Putting bad gimmicks sometimes can hurt wrestlers because you forget how good of a wrestler Dustin is and was. And with Stone Cold, he is a good wrestler, but you forget how bad gimmicks he's had. So
yeah,
because I think right after this, doesn't he go with Brian, become the Hollywood Blondes pretty soon?
I think so. Yeah, that's pretty close.
That was so entertaining.
And then he became the ringmaster in WWF, and he had a lot of bad gimmicks.
He probably took that suit with him to $1 Million Man.
Probably, yeah, right. Next up is yet another tag team match. This time is for the world title. You have Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton getting a win over the Steiner brothers in just over 20 minutes. Again, this was an excellent match. I mean, the Steiner brothers could go back then. I mean, I'm not a huge Scott Steiner fan, but when him and Rick were in this era, I mean, they could go. And Arn Anderson, one of the most, I think, underrated performers in the history of wrestling. Like, he could work, and Bobby Eaton could as well. Kind of a wonky finish here. I mean, Arn Anderson goes to use the powder. Blind, I believe it was Rick Steiner, and then Rick Steiner belly backs the referee. And so there's some confusion because another referee comes out, counts the fall after the Steiner recliner. Or no, the Frankensteiner.
Yep.
The Frankensteiner. So initially the Steiner brothers win the match, but the original referee that was blinded or suplexed said that their Steiner brothers are disqualified, and Anderson and Eden get the win. So a little wonky finish, a little gaga at the end, maybe takes away from the pure wrestling of it, but a solid pure pro wrestling match here.
I was really enjoying this match. It was really entertaining until the finish. Which,
yeah.
I kind of understand why, because they were trying to, not take the belts off Arn and Bobby, not trying to give them to the Steiners yet. But it was too much. They could have done DQ any other way. I just feel like that was way too much for a DQ. I mean, it could have even just been, since they're part of the Dangerous Alliance, someone coming out and just slapping friggin' Rick Steiner or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say it because last week Roland had made a comment because we were making fun of Scott Steiner at the not the Royal Rumble. What show did we do last week? Jeez, I'm blanking out here. See, because I called it No Mercy, but it was No Way Out.
No Way Out, yeah.
See, this is why I get confused easily. That's why we need you. So we're talking about No Way Out and how Scott Steiner had his rematch from the Royal Rumble against Triple H, and how he looks like now, like in the 2000s, he walks like he has bowling balls under his arm. Like he's trying to not hit people with bowling balls because he doesn't have a bag. And how he's just so stiff he can't work. And then you see this match, you're like, what did you do to yourself? Because you were such a great worker with your brother Rick. Like, early 90s Steiners are better than the Steiners in the 2000s. Because when he became Big Papa Pump, he, ruined his career, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like, he's definitely, when he was with his brother, he's definitely a much better worker. I totally agree with your point there.
And it was just kind of like I said, you kind of hit on too. It's just a shame that you had four guys who could go in the ring, a really great match with a clunky finish. But I mean, overall, it's still, we've seen some pretty bad finishes, but thankfully it's not like it's a night full of them, because that would have probably put a damper on this card.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is a singles match for the U.S. heavyweight title. Two excellent workers in this one. You have Rick Rude and Ricky Steamboat going 20 minutes here. These guys have such great chemistry. One of the favorite matches that I've covered, since we've been doing this podcast, was their 30-minute Ironman match at Beach Blast 92. So that's actually a little bit after this pay-per-view. It was just psychology-wise, wrestling-wise, it was almost perfect. It was one of the best matches I covered. I put it right up there with the Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes match from Double or Nothing. I mean, their match from Beach Blast 92 is one of the best matches that I've ever seen. I don't think this one quite lived up to that one, but I mean, this was such a solid match between excellent performers. Rick Rude, guys don't know how good Rick Rude was today. You just go watch his matches with Steamboat and Steamboat can work with anybody. Again, little wonky finish. Throughout the night, they've been trying to get an interview with Steamboat, and he's, seemingly has a ninja as an alliance with a ninja. But, during the match, the ninja hits Ricky Steamboat with the phone. Rick Rude gets the win. Obviously, the ninja was Paul Heyman, for those of you who don't know. So, little wonky finish. But, again, I could watch these guys wrestle all night long.
It's funny because I had never seen this show before. When they first were, like you said, backstage with Missy Hyatt, and he's randomly lighting stuff on fire in the locker room. And the ninja's there like, no. I was like, okay, this is clearly going to be someone, but who is it? And throughout the match, he's just standing there like, he's going to interfere. Who is this? And then it was Paul Heyman. Like, I was wondering when he was going to show up. Because earlier we had the Dangerous Alliance. They were talking about it all night. So, but it was weird to see him, I guess, as a performer and not a manager with hair as Paulie Dangerously that we're used to seeing now. Because this is like a Sopranos gimmick for him.
Yeah.
He's just like the giant Zach Morris cell phone that he smashes people with. And I agree. It was definitely a cool twist to it, but I enjoyed the match a lot. You can't really go too much more. You said Rick Rude, Hall of Fame for a reason. Ricky Steamboat, Hall of Fame for a reason. The chemistry they had was incredible. And Rick Rude to me really was, no offense to Lex Luger, the real total package. He had the gimmick, he had the charisma, he had the personality, he had the look, he could wrestle. It's a shame we lost him when he did, because he's so talented. And just, even the way he would just, do the neck breaker and he would grind his hips before he do the neck breaker, or just he would wink to the crowd, blow a kiss to his opponent. Just his subtle little things that you're like, especially when he's a heel, you're like, oh, I hate this guy. But when he's a face, you're like, let's go. And then you have Ricky Steamboat, who he was the high flyer of his day. Like, you didn't see people like him. Like, he would come off the top rope. It was just incredible that we got to see this match. Honestly, this is probably the tied for the Brian Pillman. This and the Brian Pillman match, my favorite matches of the night, because I was so entertained. I enjoyed it. I was like, wow, it was over before I knew it. It wasn't a short match. It was like 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, it's already over? Usually it's like, 20 minutes. This one's like, it's over?
Yeah. I agree exactly right. I think, it's a close call between the Pillman, Liger, and the Rude Steamboat match for the best match on the night. I mean, just incredible matches. And like I said, watch their match at Beach Blast. It's an underrated match. It's one of my favorite that we've covered on this show. I hope we get to cover these guys again sometime. There's matches that are incredible.
That's what's awesome about this podcasting and going back in time and covering all these different eras. And we get to rediscover workers we may not knew a lot about, and we get to see workers that we've heard a lot about but haven't seen. So for me, it's cool because I'd seen bits and pieces of Ricky Steamboat, but to see a full match with Rick Rude, it's like, no wonder these guys were so popular. I love watching these. Like, I can understand it now more as an adult and appreciate it. Like, wow, I didn't really appreciate them in their early and late 90s in WWF. I was just kind of like, they're just jobbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back, like, my younger self was stupid.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Next up, we made it to our main event. It is for the World Heavyweight Championship. You have Sting and Lex Luger for the title. Lex Luger with Harley Race here, which I didn't really was a pairing. I knew obviously Harley Race had the program with Vader, but I didn't really remember him managing Luger that well, so that was kind of surprising. Match only goes 13 minutes, which I thought was I thought it should have gone a little bit longer, being in the main event for the title, and you have a guy that is popular as Sting in there. Lex Luger's fine. I'm not a huge fan of his work. He's okay. So I thought the match was fine. It's just a little bit of a letdown though, based on the matches we've seen previously in the card. So it didn't live up to those expectations for me. So it's kind of a little bit of a letdown based on what we just saw coming from Rude and Steamboat. And like I said, I mentioned this earlier, the finish with the crossbody. Again, you wouldn't see that finish today for a title, not for a title switch. Sting does the crossbody on the top, gets the win over Luger. So, it was a fine main event. It just, I don't know, it didn't blow my socks off, I guess is the best way I can describe it.
Well, I think what's hard too is, like you said, Lex Luger, it's not really much for hot takes. I feel like the internet agrees with us. Wasn't really the best worker. He had the look and he had charisma. And it's not that he couldn't wrestle. He couldn't. He's not a main eventer, in my opinion. He wasn't someone that should have been in world title matches. I know he had the look, but you could tell Sting kind of had to carry this match. Other Luger matches we've seen, even when he was in the NWO era, he just kind of was there. I know WWF tried to put the title on him. It did not work at all. He could just never, I guess, compete with those kind of guys. So I think that's what kind of hurt the match. And like you said, the ending was just kind of weird. It was like crossbody, and then Luger got right up after the bell rang. Like he's just back on his feet. Like nothing happened. So it's like, okay. And I like that the whole night though they were playing up like, oh, Sting can't win this. Like Eric Bischoff's like, Sting's too hot headed. He ain't gonna get this. He can't get this. And then he wins, and then Sting kind of just walks out with the belt. Like there's no celebration. There's no. Yeah. It was just a weird way for a championship match to end. And then the champion doesn't even get coordinated. I know they're maybe running out of time. I don't know, but he just walks out. Like there's like this weird Sting kind of walking around the ring for a little bit. The crowd's kind of panning around. Like they wasted like 2-3 minutes of filler shots, and then Sting just walks up the ramp with his belt like nothing happened. Mm-hmm. I was like, You just won the world title, bro.
But overall, I thought this was a really good show. One of my favorites that we've covered in a long time. I'm going to give this a pretty high rating just because I really enjoy. I'm going to give it an 8, I think. I mean, I thought it was a solid show. Yeah, a couple finishes were kind of wonky with some gaga, but pure wrestling-wise, this was a really good show. And like I said, I would agree with you. I think it's a tie between Pillman, Liger, and Rude Steamboat for the best match of the night. You definitely have to watch those. I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go about 7.5, and the half only just because that tag team match went 10 minutes too long, and then the finish. But I mean, that's wrestling. You're going to get wonky finishes, matches that go too long, too short. So I don't want to take away, because the wrestling itself puts it at 7.5 from the opening match to the Ricky Steamboat match. You had quality wrestling. You had great storylines, finishes. There was good storytelling in the ring too, and that's kind of what's lacking nowadays too. Is there was a lot of working body parts. There was a lot of technical wrestling. There was a lot of, like they talked earlier in the Brian Pillman match, how he knew that Liger was a high flyer, so he had to keep him on the mat. He had to keep him grounded. I like that the announcers, and that's why I think when you mentioned earlier, a good pairing, it helped because they were helped telling the storyline of what's going on in the ring. Like Brian Pillman had to keep him grounded, and it worked. His strategy worked. He's the new champion. So that's the kind of stuff I like, because if you want to give it that real fight feel, you got to tell us why they're fighting. It's got to make sense. And then, I like when they talk strategy. Body of the Ventura talks all the time. A thumb to the eye will break any hole. It's like,
Yeah.
you gotta. I love those. Or when especially when he's a heel, and he's just like, I would have grabbed a little bit more tights than that. Like, it just.
Yeah, he gave you a really good insight, to it. I thought the commentary team was exceptional. I honestly thought the overall presentation of the show was really good too. I mean, it had a big fight feel. It had a high level boxing match feel to it. I mean, when you have a boxing match, you have the glitz and the glamour. People are dressing up. You kind of had that. I mean, Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff in suits, JYD in his suit. I mean, the presentation, even the stage. I mean, it wasn't an elaborate set design by any means, but it just had a big fight feel to it. So I really like the presentation of it, even though it was in the early 90s where they didn't have a high set. The production value wasn't that great, but they did really well here presentation-wise, I think.
No, I agree too, because usually when you go back to the 90s or the 80s, you watch it, you can clearly tell it's on like hi-fi stereo with like a JVC camera that was this big being filmed, and like the audio is like 2 channels off, so you can barely hear it.
Yeah. But
even the sound quality, like usually I'm always listening for like the technical glitches. There wasn't too bad. Missy Hyatt with her over the top like backstage report, she killed it. Like she was a good backstage reporter in this era. Like I thought it was funny. Like maybe I'll get an interview with her. And she's just like running down the and I think they did the backstage segments a lot better than most places. Like that's how I don't mind it, when they just kind of, when it's the wrestler walking away and they cut away out back, but then they cut back in time so you're not wasting 20 minutes in the backstage area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. So overall, that was a really excellent show. So yeah, definitely go ahead and watch SuperBrawl II from 1992. Excellent show. So yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up for today. Sorry, this is kind of a short episode, but obviously we're a man down, so we don't have the wonderful insight that Roland has to offer today. But we do have a lot of exciting things coming up for you guys the next couple of weeks. Next week, it is all about AEW Revolution. The hopes are we're going to be able to watch Revolution 2020 and review that. The whole Bleacher Report thing, we're not sure exactly how that's going to work. So that's kind of our plan. If it doesn't work out, we'll call it audible. We'll have a show for you. Either way, though, we're going to predict a Revolution 2022. That's coming your way on, the predictions will be next Saturday. The show is next Sunday, March 6th. We'll probably talk. There's a show at the Garden on March 5th for WWE. We might talk a little bit about that, depending if anything noteworthy happens. I know Lesnar's defending the title there. Not sure against who yet. So anytime the E's at the Garden, though, something noteworthy could happen. So if anything noteworthy comes up, we'll talk about that. The following week is back to TNA, circling to TNA 2006 as we continue our year-long journey there. So that's what's kind of coming up for you guys the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we got a lot of good content, and we want you to give us your opinions on the shows. We want some fan interaction, comment, post, do anything you want. Not anything you want. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, let us know. Give us your opinions about the shows. If there's a topic you guys want us to cover, let us know that. We're on all the social media platforms, from the Facebook to the TikTok and everywhere in between. So, let us know what you think, and likes, dislikes, whatever. Let us know.
Absolutely. Just make sure that, and the handle's easy for all of them too. It's at WPAP Podcast. So yeah, make sure you're also telling your friends about the show. You know, we've had a lot of growth recently. It's great. I noticed that in the first year, that the numbers we got the first year, we got this month. So I think that's pretty cool that we're now averaging monthly what we got the first year. So we appreciate everyone for listening and telling people to listen. We'll be back to our 3-man booth next week. So I know that we've had some, different situations here, but we always try to get you a show with 1, 2, or 3 of us. Hopefully it's never 1 because I don't want to do that.
That would be awful. I've tried a one-man podcast before I started doing this one, and it was not good. Not good whatsoever.
I just think it's hard because you need the person to talk back to. So
yeah, you do.
And like you said, with Rhodes Insights, I like that we all bring something different to the show. And everyone, we all have fun doing it. We appreciate you guys are going along for the ride. I'm excited to go back to AEW 2020 because that was one of the last pay-per-views for the pandemic really locked everything down, and it was right off the cruise too. So I remember that was the really good storyline of Moxley conquering Jericho for the title. So it'll be interesting to kind of go back to that if we can. And obviously Revolution 2022 is shaping up to be a really, really good card. And it's getting close to Mania season, Mania week. So wrestling, all these shows and cards are picking up. So this is a good time wrestling. I mean, honestly, March, April wrestling is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. WrestleMania is coming your way. We're all excited about Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair.
We are?
What? We're not? So yeah, like you said, it's a good time to be a wrestling fan, and we thank you guys for listening to us each and every week. Hopefully you listen to us each and every week, but if you just listen to us one time, that's fine too. Thank you. Like Mongo said, spread the word about us. We've got a lot of growth, but we want to make this as big as we can, and we want you guys to be involved with that. So we love doing this. We'll be hopefully back to full strength next week. Roland, get better. Feel better. Hopefully we didn't disappoint you too much on this one. Linda will be happy. It's a short episode this week, so this is definitely the definition of a Linda episode. So shout out to Linda, Roland's mom. Thanks for listening as always. I think that pretty much wraps things up. Mongo, you got anything else before we sign off?
No, I think that's good. I think we hit everything on the head. I guess we'll see you next week, guys.
We'll see you next week. Everybody, take care. AEW Revolution coming your way next Saturday at 5 this time. We're not posting this early again. Hopefully not.
Well, you're doing it, so joke's on you.
I'm doing it. Yeah, I know, right? It'd be my fault if we post early. But thanks for listening. Take care. We'll see you guys next week. Roll and get better. Until next week, I'm Tim Kirk.
And I'm Mongo.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. F5. Bye, team.
I hope you're all having a nice day.